Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest data projects on the entire planet, India's 2011 census. And believe me, it's way more than just numbers. It's a snapshot, a portrait of a whole nation.
Just think about that for a second. How on earth do you even begin to tell the story of more than 1 billion individual lives? All their hopes, their day-to-day realities? Well, you start with something like this, a census. And it's not just about counting heads, it's about understanding the real story of a country at one specific moment in time. All right, let's get into it. To really get a handle on the 2011 census, you first have to wrap your head around the mind-boggling scale of it all. Just look at that number, over 1.21 billion people. Back in 2011, this was the largest administrative exercise in the world. A massive, massive job. We're talking 2.7 million officials going door to door to every household across the entire country.
And the growth is just staggering. An increase of 181.5 million people in just one decade. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that's like taking the entire population of Brazil at the time and adding it to India in just 10 years.
And of course, all those people need somewhere to live. This number, 382 people for every square kilometer, was the average. That's a huge jump from a decade earlier, and you can really see the growing pressure on space, on land, on resources.
This is also where you start to see the incredible diversity within India. On one hand, you've got a state like Uttar Pradesh with a population bigger than most countries, and on the other, you have Sikkim with just over 500,000 people. It just goes to show you, India isn't one single story. It's millions of different stories all at once.
So you have this massive population, but not everyone was experiencing life in the same way. Not even close. One of the biggest themes the census reveals is this really stark difference between life in the cities and life out in the villages.
Despite all the talk about India's booming megacities, the country in 2011 was still overwhelmingly rural. As you can see right here, almost 7 out of every 10 people lived in a village. And this is really the key to understanding the inequalities we're about to look at.
Okay, take something as basic as a toilet. The gap was just huge. Over 81% of city households had one, right? But for rural households, that number drops to just under 31%. That one statistic tells you so much about the different worlds people were living in every single day.
And you see the same story with something like cooking fuel. In cities, 2/3 of homes were using modern, cleaner fuels like LPG. But in rural areas, barely over 11%. And that has a huge impact on health, especially for women and kids, not to mention the environment.
But hey, the census wasn't just a story of divides. It also captured a country that was right in the middle of a major transformation. So let's zoom in a bit, right inside the Indian household to see those signs of change.
And there was definitely progress. In that 10-year gap, access to electricity went up a lot. You can see the jump right here. That is a huge marker of development, lighting up millions of homes and opening up a whole new world of possibilities.
We see a really similar story with how people were connecting to the rest of the world. TV ownership shot up over that same decade. For millions of families, this was a massive shift in how they got information, news, and entertainment. But this wave of modernization wasn't lifting all boats equally. When you dig a little deeper into the data, you start to see these persistent disparities woven into India's social fabric. As we get into this, we're just going to look at the numbers exactly as they were presented.
This map kind of gives us a bird's-eye view of that inequality. It's called the Household Amenities Index. Basically, it bundles together a bunch of factors like housing quality, water, and electricity. And what it shows is a really clear pattern. States in the central and eastern parts of the country generally had lower access to these basic amenities than many states in the north and south. It paints a picture of some pretty significant regional divides.
The census also breaks down the data by social groups that have historically faced exclusion. In 2011, people from scheduled castes made up 16.6% of the population, and those from scheduled tribes made up 8.6%. And keeping these numbers in mind is really important for what we're about to see next. So, with that context, have a look at this table. It presents the census data straight up, comparing access to amenities. For these key things, electricity, toilets, modern cooking fuel, Households from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities had lower access compared to the national average. And that's exactly why this data is collected, so that policymakers can see where the gaps are and figure out how to address them.
Okay, so we've been through a lot of data. Let's zoom back out. What's the point of all this? Why does this massive, complicated exercise actually matter?
Well, at its core, the census is basically the foundation for good government. It's the roadmap. Without this kind of detailed data, trying to figure out where to build schools or hospitals or roads would just be a guessing game. This ensures that planning is based on the real, on-the-ground needs of the people.
And you know, the official motto of the 2011 census really says it all. Our census, our future. It's such a simple phrase, but it perfectly captures what this whole project was about. Counting everyone in the present was always about building a better future for everyone.
So the 2011 census gave us this incredibly detailed snapshot of a nation going through rapid, complex, and pretty uneven change. And that leaves us with one last fascinating question to think about. Given how much faster things have changed since then, what incredible new story of India will the next census have to tell? Thanks for joining me.